Getting ready to make your voice heard in the next election? Well, if you want to cast a ballot, verifying your registration status is usually step number one. But what if I told you that in one specific state, the normal rules are completely turned upside down? Today, in this explainer, we're demystifying the voting process in North Dakota. It's a system that is literally unlike any other in the country, and it requires a very specific type of preparation from you. So let's just cut right to the chase and ask the big question that probably brought you here today. How exactly do you check your voter registration in North Dakota? If you were to hop online right now, frantically searching for a registration deadline or a portal to submit your voter card, what do you think you'd find? Well, it's a total trick question. North Dakota doesn't have voter registration. Yep, you heard that right. It is the only state in the entire nation that does not require you to formally register before you vote. I know if you've recently moved there from another state, that might sound like a typo, but it is 100% true. Instead of a pre-registration list, the state verifies your eligibility right there at the polls. But wait, that absolutely does not mean you can just walk in empty-handed. It just means your preparation shifts from filling out a form weeks in advance to making sure you have the exact right documentation in your hand on Election Day. Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our step-by-step game plan for today. First, we'll look at the North Dakota exception. Then, verifying your voting eligibility, followed by mandatory voter ID requirements. After that, we'll solve some common voter issues, talk about preparing for Election Day, and wrap up with official resources and a quick disclaimer. All right, Part 1, the North Dakota exception. There are 0 registration forms to fill out, 0 deadlines to mail in a voter card, none of that. Instead, North Dakota uses a highly integrated system. They identify, confirm, and track eligible voters using data straight from the North Dakota Department of Transportation, which feeds directly into what's called a central voter file. It's like a live, dynamic database. As Representative Julie Federchuk pointed out in a recent op-ed, this system relies on a common-sense ID standard that ensures only eligible citizens vote. It acts as a sort of gold standard for security, completely bypassing the bureaucratic headache of a registration deadline. It's an incredibly streamlined approach for sure, but it places the responsibility entirely on you to show up with the right proof of identity. Moving right along to Part 2, verifying your voting eligibility. So, what does it actually take to be a qualified elector? You've got to check all of these specific boxes. First, you must be a United States citizen. Second, you got to be at least 18 years old on or by Election Day. Third, you must be a legal resident of North Dakota. And this next one is absolutely crucial. You must have lived in your specific precinct for at least 30 days immediately before the election. Finally, a quick note on criminal records, because people ask about this a lot. Under North Dakota law, you only lose your right to vote if you are currently incarcerated for a felony conviction. If you're on probation, on parole, or if you've completed your sentence, your voting rights are immediately restored. So if you meet all these criteria, you are legally protected and fully eligible to vote. Now, you might be wondering, if there's no registration list, how do I actually verify my status? Well, it's all about your address. You'll want to head over to the North Dakota Secretary of State's online portal and click on the My Voting Information tool. When you type in your physical residential address, the system does a spatial query against that central voter file we just talked about. It instantly confirms your administrative status, tells you exactly which precinct you belong to, and shows you right where your polling location is. It's just a really brilliant, quick way to audit your own records before you even leave the house. Which brings us to Section 3, mandatory voter ID requirements. This right here brilliantly illustrates how the state balances voter access with security. There are exactly 4 acceptable forms of primary identification you can bring to the polls. That's it. Number 1, a North Dakota driver's license. Number 2, a North Dakota non-driver's identification card. Number 3, a tribal ID or an official tribal letter issued by a tribal government. Or number 4, a current year long-term care certificate, which is typically issued by a qualified nursing home. Now, listen up, because this is where people tend to get tripped up. Merely having one of those 4 IDs in your wallet is not enough. The law mandates that the ID must visibly display 3 very specific pieces of information: your legal name, your date of birth, and your current North Dakota physical residential address. So if you've recently moved and your driver's license still shows your old apartment's address, for example, that ID is technically incomplete for voting purposes. But hey, don't panic. If your ID is missing your current address, or if it's just completely outdated, the state has a workaround. You can bring what's called a supplemental document. This is just an official paper, like a current utility bill, a bank statement, a paycheck, or a document issued by a government agency. You just present this right alongside your primary ID to fill in that missing address information. Think of it like a two-part puzzle. Your photo ID proves who you are, and the utility bill proves where you currently live. Okay, let's talk troubleshooting in Section 4, Solving Common Voter Issues. Life happens, right? But the system is actually designed to accommodate almost every edge case. Got an outdated address on your ID? You can easily update it online through the Department of Transportation before Election Day, or simply bring that supplemental document we just went over. What if you're unhoused or don't have a traditional permanent address? Your right to vote is still strictly protected by law. You can use a letter from a shelter, a relief agency certification, or you can even work with a county 911 coordinator to get a recognized location assigned to you. And what if you get all the way to the polling place and realize you left your wallet on the kitchen counter? Don't worry, you can still vote using what's called a set-aside ballot. We'll dig into exactly how that works in just a second. But first, a super quick heads up for college students, because this is a massive point of confusion every single year. A student ID alone is not a valid form of voter ID in North Dakota. No exceptions. However, if you have an official printed document issued by your college or university that shows your dorm or your local address, you can use that in combination with your student ID as supplemental documentation to support your main state or tribal ID. It's all about pairing the right documents together to get the job done. All right, Section 5, Preparing for Election Day. So let's talk about that safety net for voters. Remember that set-aside ballot I mentioned? If you show up on Election Day without your ID, you are not turned away. Instead, you cast a set-aside ballot. Your ballot gets sealed up in an envelope and a ticking clock starts. You are given a strict 13-day window following the election to cure it. You absolutely must present your valid ID to your local county auditor, either in person or electronically within those 13 days. On day 13, the county canvassing board meets. If you verified your identity by then, they unseal your envelope and your vote is officially counted. But if you miss that window, your ballot remains sealed and uncounted. So it's a flexible window, sure, but it requires urgent action on your part. Now, on the flip side, if you do have your ID ready to go, the in-person process is incredibly smooth. When you hand your ID over to the poll worker, state law requires them to ask you 3 simple verbal acknowledgement questions. They'll ask, are you at least 18 years of age? Are you a U.S. citizen, and have you lived in North Dakota for the last 30 days? Once you answer yes to those, you are handed your ballot and you're officially ready to make your voice heard. Finally, wrapping up with Section 6, Official Resources and Disclaimer. Look, being proactive is the name of the game here. If you need to check your precinct, go straight to the Secretary of State's My Voting Information portal. If you need to update the address on your driver's license, head over to the North Dakota Department of Transportation website. If you run into complex issues or you need to verify one of those set-aside ballots, your local county auditor is going to be your best friend. And of course, if you face any intimidation or unfair roadblocks on Election Day itself, you can always call the Nonpartisan Election Protection Hotline at 866-RVOTE. And, of course, a quick professional disclaimer before we go, election laws and procedures can and do change. While we've distilled the most current source material for this explainer, you should always consult the North Dakota Secretary of State's official website as your final ultimate authority on voting procedures. North Dakota has built something really unique here. It's a system that actively protects your right to vote without the hassle of a registration deadline. It is efficient, it's secure, and the process is entirely in your hands. But it demands one thing from you, readiness. So I leave you with this question. Are you fully prepared right now with the exact right ID and current address to ensure your voice is heard this election day? Don't wait until the last minute. Go check your documents today.